breakout room number 1. And thank you again for joining today. Today we'll be hearing from Lynn, Nahmens and Radhika Krishnadas, who will be leading us in a discussion on stacking from non-credit to masters. Radhika and Lynn, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll now yield to you all.
All right, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and the sessions from the past 2 days have been excellent. And I know Radhika and I are really excited to share some things that we're doing at LSU with you. So I'm Lynn Nahmens. I'm the Assistant Director of Learner Career Pathways, and I'm joined here with my fearless leader, Dr. Radhika Krishnadas, the Assistant Vice President of Program and Learning Design. So we both work at LSU Online and Continuing Education, which is a services and support unit within the broader University of LSU. So you may hear me refer to LSU Online as OCE during this session because we do have both the credit and non-credit sides of the house. So today we're going to share our approach to stackables, and we're going to talk through kind of our evolution of that through presenting our construction management programs. So we'll provide some context and background, and then share some tips for getting started and maybe some of our lessons learned before we hopefully, if time allows, open the floor to questions and discussion. So as I mentioned, we are a services and support unit within LSU. We serve learners across the LSU family of institutions, though. So we support Alexandria and Shreveport and the other campuses. We help colleges stand up fully online degree and certificate programs, but we're in kind of a unique position because we also work with continuing education, that we have both sides of the house. And so we develop online non-credit professional development programs, as well as short-form credit-bearing microcredentials for non-matriculating students. So we're not a separate institution. Our diplomas have LSU on them, not LSU Online. So we're just there to help support with marketing, recruitment, retention, and then obviously course design and program launches. And so our goal constantly and always is to build learner and career-centric bridges between those two sides of the house. And again, we're really fortunate that because we do have both sides, we can work very collaboratively to build those different pathways. So I'm going to hand it over to Radhika, who's going to share a little bit about how we got started in this.
Thank you, Lynn, and I apologize, my audio quality is spotty, so I'm going off video. So good afternoon, everyone. It's been great the last 2 days. Some of the sessions have been very, very helpful for us as we work through this. So when I think of where higher ed is today, Charles Dickens' lines from A Tale of Two Cities come to my mind. This is the best of times, this is the worst of times, and not worst maybe for higher ed, but challenging for sure. Today, we are seeing a lot of these similar dualities. So emerging from the pandemic, we faced a lot of technological advancements, especially with the explosion of AI, which had huge possibilities for innovation, reach, access. But we also know it came with the challenges of rapidly changing job requirements and the need for the learners to remain relevant in a rapidly changing workplace. So we heard from the sessions yesterday, the panel, the students now are looking at what they can do quickly to remain relevant and employed and do it in a cost-effective way. And similarly, employers are also looking to moving to skill-based hiring rather than depending on the traditional means of degrees and transcripts. So as we emerge from the pandemic, we asked ourselves, how can we align our program to be more skills-based so students can get what they need and when they need it? We wanted to serve a wide range of learner needs, professionals who may need upskilling but lack time and financing, as we heard yesterday, but also high school students who wanted to get their feet wet and say, is this the right industry for me, without committing to the whole degree, right? So we wanted to explore a wide array of offerings that would address both social and economical challenges that students face and to open up access to different student populations. So how we define stackable is modular units within a curriculum that can enable students to earn credentials in a progressive way. So these credentials, as we just heard from Doreen, have immediate value in employability, can be stacked over time, and allow a student to move from one level to the next, culminating in a more advanced degree or qualification. Next, yeah. So we were looking for somebody to pilot this stackable concept with a department who was already aligned with the skills their industry was looking for, and more importantly, were open to rethinking the structure of their portfolio. And we found our champions with the Burt S. Turner Department of Construction Management. So this department already had a very strong connection to their industry. They had very close relationships with the LSU Construction Industry Advisory Council. And that council is made up of industry leaders, professional organizations, as well as graduates of the construction management program. So it's a very diverse pool of people who can really inform what the curriculum should look like. So they review the curriculum, they give input into what the industry needs are, and they make recommendations what can support students in their learning. And many times the companies who are members in the CIAC, they actually recruit our students even before they've finished their graduation. So it's been working, that relationship with CIAC has been really working well for the curriculum development and refinement. So in collaboration with the department chair, Dr. Berryman, and his key faculty, we started looking at job descriptions in the field and comparing those to the existing curricula and to see what are the areas within the program that could be kind of parsed out into smaller, more manageable portions. And we said, let's try and define the smallest possible cluster of subsequent courses that could stack into milestones that individually would stand alone and be meaningful and applicable, but could stack up into a progressive higher degree. So we started developing short forms, and we call them microcreds. That's our term for microcredentials. And these programs are offered through our continuing education unit. So students who sign up for these microcredits do not have to go through an admission process. And these certificates are basically comprised of three credit courses, and they're the same courses and faculty as in the bachelor's program or the post-bac program. And in fact, the courses, we've made a process where the courses run concurrently with the courses in the degree program. So they're cross-enrolled, and both populations sit in the same classroom and learn from the same instructor, the same content. And because these are credit-bearing courses, students receive an LSU transcript, and that can transfer into the degree program. So the transfer as you go model, if a student takes the step to apply to LSU, they can stop out with their microcred as well, and they do receive a digital badge upon completion of that microcred that they can share, display on LinkedIn, and any other relevant social media avenues. And our first microcred was the Intro to Construction Management. That was the first credential with entry skills that students could take to form a foundation to understand what's the breadth of career options in that field. And from there, we started chunking other courses into additional microcreds and degree certificate. Now, that all sounds really complicated, and to show that in picture and visual, I'm going to turn it back to Lynn to show you how that was done.
All right, thank you. I had to make sure I was off mute. So like Radhika said, it sounds complicated, and that's because it kind of is when you try to map it out. So I'm going to do my best to kind of talk you through this slide. So from left to right, I have our credit for prior learning kind of big buckets. And then in the middle are those credit-bearing micro-credentials. And these are those short form, they're 3 courses, each of them gets a digital badge. So it's a stopping point, it's also an entry point. And then on the right, we have our kind of formalized matriculating certificates and degree programs. And so within our stackable strategy, all of our credit-bearing microcreds can go into the bachelor's degree or the undergraduate cert. You'll see the principles of facilities management there on the bottom goes into the post-bac for facilities management. And I want to call out how we figured out how to chunk all of these courses together. So the bachelor's degree has industry emphasis areas so that students can kind of have a specialization in facilities management, in commercial, in residential construction, in highway, and that type of thing. And so we were able to kind of focus on that emphasis area and pull out those courses to make a short form credential out of them that then again can transfer and stack into those larger degrees. So again, that all of these kind of have some common courses that can be transferred between those two sides of the slide. Now, when we built this, we also wanted to make sure that microcreds could stack into each other as well. And so you'll see there that I have the intro to construction management going into the construction technology management microcred. There are two common courses between these. And so if a student just wants to dip their toes in, take the intro microcred, they only have to take one more course to get the construction technology management microcred in that digital badge. And then within the other ones, there are some common courses between them. I didn't map that out because some of them have a core plus choose an elective structure. And so that just would have been a little bit too chaotic for this slide, but just know that those can they relate to each other, and students can build upon those skills before they commit to a full degree or to, apply to the institution. So not only do the microcreds transfer into each other and into those degree programs, but on the certificates and degree side, those can stack as well. So the undergraduate cert can go into the bachelor's, the post-bac cert can go into the master's. And interestingly, our post-bacs are kind of bidirectional because they also have some common courses between them. So we want to offer a lot of options for students to meet them where they are in terms of their motivations and their ambitions and what they want to do. Now, I'm going to kind of end on the credit for prior learning part because there are so many options there, and think of those as, again, additional entry points for students. So starting with military training, we have a lot of kind of established quote unquote agreements where if we know a student's coming in with a certain training or certain service role, we know that will transfer for X credits or X number of courses into those programs. So for instance, for the undergraduate in construction management, someone may get credit for CM 1011, which happens to be the first course in the intro to construction management. So while we haven't seen anyone take advantage of this, I think there is a possibility to even weave in PLA into those micro-credentials as well. For industry training, and with this, I'm considering this as apprenticeships and internships, but also our own homegrown continuing education courses and classes, as we do build those microcreds on the non-credit side as well. So those can transfer into or PLA into those programs. Obviously, some college no degree can transfer. And then also our certifications and licensures. So in addition to being an entry point and a PLA opportunity, the degrees also embed certifications into the curriculum. So students who are graduating, say for the bachelor's degree, they're also graduating with some OSHA certifications as well. So again, they're getting kind of that degree plus experience and that they can immediately apply to their jobs. So I'm going to put all of this back on the screen so you can see how complicated that really is when you start looking at it. So, Holly mentioned earlier that it's communicating this to students and telling them what these options are is one of our challenges. So if anyone's doing this and has a better way, method, tool, etc., please connect with me afterwards, because this is a pain point for me personally of how do I communicate all of this to students. So at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Radhika, because maybe you're wondering, how do we get started and how do you actually begin breaking down and repackaging degrees so that you can do that stackable? And I think you're going to hear some things that have already been mentioned today and definitely yesterday as well. So Radhika, over to you. And I don't hear you and I can't see you, so you might be on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute.
Okay.
Sorry. So to be able to begin building the stackable architecture, or to say attempt innovations of any kind, really, we need to make sure the environment is conducive for us to proceed. And you heard this again from Doreen just now. The most critical requirement is to have leadership support and finding faculty champions who are student-centric and they are willing to try something new. And I cannot emphasize this aspect enough. Without that initial support from both, it's really difficult to start and sustain any of these kind of innovative changes. So we were very fortunate that we found that in the construction management department. They're really progressive program director as well as his faculty. And we also needed to determine student populations that stand to benefit the most from these stackable offerings and see what their entry points may be. And finally, we need to really clearly define the skills outlined in these courses and map the student outcomes to the evidence students need to demonstrate. So the first thing was to position, like how best to position the stack so that it made sense, was relevant for the learner, and it was applicable to where they were at that point in time in their workplace. So we needed to have really well-defined entry points that map to what the industry is seeking in terms of entry, mid, and senior level positions, and where the industry was headed in terms of knowledge and competencies. To get started, I would suggest to hold some discovery sessions with industry leaders or find out if departments are fully utilizing their advisory council. So which is one that we found that not many people were leveraging their advisory council. So something that we've recently started at OCE is we've begun holding industry insight panels at the very beginning of our program planning. So we invite industry leaders and faculty to discuss what's the job skills needed at the entry point, what's the job skills needed for an intermediate position, and what would they need to do to get promoted in the workplace. So we find that when faculty were hearing that information directly from employers, they're more likely to integrate that feedback into their curriculum. In fact, we're doing a cybersecurity insights panel next week, where we've invited faculty from all across our LSU campuses, because we want to build a cyber pathway right from the associate degree all the way to the master's. So looking forward to that event. The next one is identifying, so again, as I said before, what are the natural milestones, which means the smallest cluster of courses that can be unbundled from within the curriculum, as well as think of alternate non-credit routes through credit for prior learning that could serve as entry points to what Lynn was mentioning earlier. And then mapping and leveling that. So you formalize the entry point, you formalize the exit points on the pathway. And then another key thing is to evaluate the assessments. We need students to be able to demonstrate what we say they will complete within that small cluster of courses. Unless they're able to demonstrate their competencies, it's going to be a wash. So we wanted to make sure that the assessments were really intentionally designed for those particular cluster of courses and that it led to something of value. So one of the things that we do at LSU Online is focusing on the connection between what students are learning and how they can apply that in their current or future careers. So as Lynn mentioned, the BS in Construction Management has integrated OSHA and other certifications into that program so that students kind of graduate with a degree plus. We've also been adding practice activities for the more durable human skills like communication, problem solving, management, because we found that those were some of the careers that really looked for those kind of human skills as well, the transferable skills that can move into any setting. So we have well-rounded graduates. We have also started adding skill statements into our courses. So students see a section called Career Skills Gained right on the landing page of the courses so that they are able to then articulate what they are learning to their employers. We're trying to even create the module level learning objectives to reflect like skill statements so that they are seeing it reinforced again and again throughout the course. So to wrap up, as we saw with Lynn's graphic, a learner's pathway is never going to be linear, right? So you always have to keep in mind the how else could a learner come into a stackable pathway, for instance, through non-credit opportunities, trainings, military. So, and the last thing I'll say is this takes time and this takes a village. So we need to be really like, who do we want at the table? Who best can give value to these discussions and make it to fruition? Now that we have this CM stackable in place, we are seeing other programs, beginning to evaluate their programs and seeing how this can stack and create short forms to build up to the whole degree. So we hope these steps and the lessons learned help you in your stackable initiatives. And we'll stop now for questions.